Hello, it's Father John Paul Walker, and here once again with another video about our Catholic faith. Last month, I presented on the nature and the beauty of marriage, holy matrimony. I'd like to follow that up this month by reflecting on some ways in which sometimes things go awry, and what the Church is teaching and what the Church's response is to this. So there's a couple topics I want to touch on. The first is what happens when a Catholic is married outside of the Church. So that is, they don't go through the Catholic wedding prep and they don't get married in the Church, but maybe it's a justice of the peace or some random minister or celebrant of some sort doing something at a reception venue or on the beach or whatever it might be. So the Church does not recognize this as a sacramental marriage. The couple is legally married, but in the eyes of the Church, they are not married. They are still single. And so when someone's in that state where they're living as if they were married, but they in fact aren't sacramentally married, that fact precludes them from receiving Holy Communion. Because they're in a state, an irregular state in their marriage. And so anyone in that situation, if they're Catholic, are encouraged to go to Mass every Sunday as always, but just to not go to communion, to refrain and spend some time in prayer. Now, the Church has a solution to this state, this irregular state, if you have a couple that is willing. And that is, there's a process called convalidation, by which a couple can work with a priest or a deacon to give them some, again, education about the nature of sacramental marriage to prepare them for that. And then there can be a small ceremony where the couple professes their wedding vows according to the Catholic formula for doing that, the Catholic words for that. And as such, they can sacramentalize their marriage. So that previous secular or civil marriage can now be, as it were, elevated to the level of a sacramental marriage, allowing the couple to receive communion, allowing them to serve as godparents at a baptism, or to serve as confirmation sponsors, things like that. And a couple that's only civilly married and not sacramentally cannot be godparents, cannot be confirmation sponsors. So this is something that's very important. And if any of you out there are in this situation, or if you know anyone in this situation, I would really encourage you to encourage them to speak to your priest at your parish. Explain the situation. Say that you would like to have your marriage sacramentalized or convalidated, and allow the priest or the deacon or whomever to walk you through that process. It's really not very complicated, so I encourage you to do that. Now, what about a couple who are married and things aren't going well? We know this happens in our world a lot for a lot of really complex reasons, but things are just getting worse and worse and worse, and the couple starts questioning whether they can continue to live together, to be married. So the first thing the Church would say is running to divorce is never the right course of action. We always want to do everything possible to try to save the marriage, which is a great good. So the Church would encourage the couple to go to counseling, to try to see if having some third party could help them to work out whatever the disagreements, the struggles, the lack of communication, whatever it might be, to try to get some help to kind of put them on a more solid footing. The Church also has retreats that the Church offers for couples who are struggling in their marriage. And again, that's something that sometimes just that taking 3 days away from the stresses and the burdens and all of daily life to kind of get away in a place that's quiet and secluded, in like a calm, holy environment, can sometimes be something that really helps to jumpstart that marital relationship back again. What if we've tried that and it's still, things aren't getting better or they're getting worse? Then the church sometimes says maybe a period of separation would be good, to be living under two different roofs, to give a little bit of space, maybe to escape from some of the stressors or annoyances of living together that may have contributed to the situation, and also space kind of to reflect for a while. Then if things still aren't going in the right direction, sometimes it's allowable or even necessary for a couple to divorce. We never want it to come to that, but sometimes it just seems there's no possible other alternative. The church doesn't teach that divorce is evil. It doesn't teach that divorce is a sin necessarily in itself. Again, to run to divorce without trying to save a marriage could be sinful. But if a couple has in good faith tried to salvage their marriage and it just is clear it's not going to happen, then the church teaches, for the sake of kind of protecting oneself, divorce does give certain legal protections and so forth to each of the spouses, and that might be the proper course of action. Now, again, important, divorce itself is not a sin, which means if someone is divorced, they are not forbidden from going to communion. And this is a point that is so, I've found, misunderstood by so many Catholics. They think if I'm divorced, the church rejects me, I can't go to communion, none of that's true. Divorce itself does not prevent anyone from receiving Holy Communion or going to confession or any of the other sacraments. Now, what does? If someone who is divorced then goes and gets married again outside of the church, right? So now we're in the same situation as what I started this video with. You have two people who are civilly married, but who are not sacramentally married in the church. At that point, when someone's gotten civilly married and is living as a married couple, when they aren't sacramentally married, again, that's the point at which they're no longer able to receive communion, or serve as a baptismal godparent or a confirmation sponsor, because of that, again, objective, irregular situation with the marriage. So, does that mean someone who's divorced is never ever going to be allowed to get married again in the church? And the answer is no, not necessarily. We have a process in the church called annulment. And what that is after a couple has divorced, okay, the civil divorce has to be in place before anything related to an annulment can begin. But once a civil divorce is in place, either of the spouses could approach the church, approach their pastor, to begin the process of annulment, which is really a process of examining that marriage from the very beginning. In the last video, I spoke about how for a sacramental bond to form, a couple has to understand what marriage is, intend it, desire it, and be able to live it, right? Intend to live it, the obligations, and be capable of living it. And so a big part of what the annulment process does is it looks at where the bride and groom were going into their marriage. Were they truly aware of what they were getting into? Did they both truly desire it? Did they both intend to live it? Were they both capable of living it? And if any of those pieces were not in place in the judgment of the church, then after a proper period of investigation, the church can declare that marriage null, which means there was never, everything that needed to be in place for there to be a sacramental bond was not there. Therefore, there was no sacramental bond. That first marriage is now null, and therefore someone is free to get married in the Catholic Church again. So again, for anyone out there who might be divorced or anyone who knows someone, I would encourage them to go speak to your priest and see if the annulment process might be something that would be a good thing for you to explore. And the priest or the deacon, whoever you're working with, can explain the details and how it works, but there's no cost to this process. And again, it's something that can be sometimes healing for those who've been through a divorce before. And again, sometimes it can be the thing that really gives someone the peace of mind to know I am free to get married again in the church if and when the Lord might bring the right person into my life. So again, there's lots of ways in which things can go wrong, but the church does have remedies for these things. And again, I would always encourage anyone with questions, speak to your parish priest and see how the church can help you in your situation. Vivat Jesus.